I can still feel the cold metal of the clippers against my scalp, the buzzing, the laughter, my own reflection. A trembling old woman with tears rolling down her face, surrounded by the people she once called family. They said it was just a joke, but I knew what it really was, a declaration. I was no longer their grandmother. I was their property. It all began 3 months earlier, the day they made me sign the papers. I'm Josephine Harper. Everyone used to call me Granny Joe, 74 years old, widow, former school teacher, proud owner of the little yellow house on Maple Street. That house had been my whole life. The walls still smelled faintly of my late husband's pipe tobacco and the lilacs he planted by the porch. I thought I'd die there, quietly, surrounded by my garden and my memories. But peace never lasts long when greed walks through your door wearing your family's smile. It started with little things. My grandson, Mark, began visiting more often, always with his wife, Nicole, who never took her eyes off my antique cabinet or the silverware. They'd bring groceries, insist on helping with bills, and then whisper to each other in the kitchen, thinking I couldn't hear. One afternoon, Nicole handed me a folder. "It's just a small legal thing, Grandma. You know, to make sure you're protected if something happens. A lifetime care agreement." Her voice was syrupy sweet, but her eyes were hard as stone. I hesitated. "What kind of care agreement?" Mark laughed. "Don't worry, it's just a guarantee we'll take care of you. You can stay here forever." Forever. The word sounded like a promise and a trap at the same time. They had already filled in most of the document. My name, my address, my signature line waiting like a loaded gun. Nicole even pressed the pen into my hand. "You trust us, don't you?" Of course I did. Or at least I wanted to. So I signed. My mistake wasn't signing. It was letting them believe I hadn't read the fine print. I'm old, yes, but I'm not stupid. The night before, I had quietly taken that same document to my old friend Harold, a retired lawyer from church. He'd smiled sadly when he read it. "They're trying to make you sign over the property under the guise of care, but I can add a clause, a hidden one that changes everything if they mistreat you. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "Yes," I told him. "Let them think they're clever. I want to see what people become when they think they've already won." He added one paragraph at the end, disguised as legal jargon. "If any party engages in acts of neglect, cruelty, or humiliation toward the benefactor, this agreement shall be null and void, reverting ownership and all assets to the original benefactor immediately." I signed it with steady hands, and so the game began. At first, they were sweet, too sweet. Nicole called me our little queen, brought me tea, fluffed my pillows. Mark promised to fix the fence and update the house. But I noticed small changes. My photographs vanished from the living room wall, my husband's old chair disappeared, and Nicole started referring to the house as our place. Then came the guests, her friends, her family, her camera. She began filming Life with Grandma Joe for her online audience. I was a prop in her videos, the kindly old woman who needed help. The comments poured in. "You're such an angel for taking care of her, poor grandma. She's lucky to have you." Each word made Nicole glow with pride. Each one made me smaller. By the second month, they'd moved into my bedroom, saying the downstairs space was safer for me. I was moved into the tiny guest room at the back near the laundry machine. Mark changed the locks, saying it was for my protection. When I asked for my sewing box, Nicole said, "Oh, Grandma, let's not clutter up the house with old stuff." My house. Then one afternoon, during her live stream, she turned to me with that same mocking smile. "Come on, Grandma, smile for the camera. Let's show everyone how cute you look." I didn't want to. My hands shook. She grabbed the phone and laughed to her viewers. "Poor Grandma Joe, always so grumpy. Maybe it's time for a makeover." They sat me down in the kitchen chair. Mark plugged in the electric clippers. I thought it was another of their cruel jokes, but when the first strand of my silver hair fell onto the floor, I realized it wasn't. "Stop this!" I cried, but they only laughed. Nicole filmed every second. "Say hi to your fans, Grandma. You look so much younger already." I felt the air on my bare scalp. The humiliation burned through me deeper than any wound. Mark's children peeked in from the doorway, giggling. My great-grandson whispered, "She looks like an egg." Nicole threw a towel around my shoulders, pretending it was all fun. "See, Grandma, don't you feel free now?" Free. I wanted to scream. But instead, I looked at my reflection in the window, hollow eyes, trembling lips, and I smiled. A small, cold smile, the kind that hides a secret. Because I knew something they didn't. The document they thought would make them owners of this house was already their sentence. That night, while they slept upstairs, I sat in the dark living room, running my hand over my bald head, feeling the air through my fingers. I wasn't crying anymore. I was calm, cold. They had taken my hair, my dignity, even my place in this house. But they had also triggered the clause that would end it all for them. Soon they'd learn what it means to underestimate an old woman. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of the wind outside kept brushing against the windows like a whisper, reminding me of every secret I'd ever buried. I sat in the dark, wrapped in an old blanket, staring at the faint glow of the street lamp through the curtains. The house was silent now, except for the ticking of the clock and the faint snoring upstairs. The monsters sleeping peacefully after their little show. My scalp still stung from the clippers. Every time I reached up to touch it, my fingers trembled between rage and disbelief. I had taught those children how to walk, how to speak, how to dream. And now they laughed as they stripped me bare, like I was nothing more than their entertainment. I pressed my palms together and whispered to myself, "They think they've taken everything, but they haven't taken my mind." The next morning, the air smelled of burnt toast and arrogance. Nicole was already filming in the kitchen, her phone mounted on a tripod. "Good morning, angels!" she chirped to her followers, flipping her newly styled blonde hair. "We're making breakfast for our sweet Grandma Jo. She's having a spa day today." A spa day. That's what she called shaving an old woman's head on camera. She turned to me with that bright, poisonous smile. "How are you feeling today, Grandma? You look 10 years younger." I didn't answer. I just looked at her through the steam of my coffee, and for the first time, she looked uneasy. Something in my silence unnerved her. Mark came downstairs, adjusting his tie. "We'll be gone most of the day," he said. "Nicole's got her podcast and I have meetings. Keep the doors locked, okay?" Locked. As if I were a child or a prisoner. When they finally left, the quiet returned. That rare, sacred quiet I had once loved in this house. I walked to my room, opened the drawer where I'd hidden the old envelope, and pulled out the copy of the agreement Harold had given me. My fingers traced the embossed seal at the bottom, the secret clause tucked neatly among the dense paragraphs of legal jargon. In the event of humiliation or mistreatment. My lips curved slightly. "Well, Harold, I guess this qualifies." I picked up the phone and dialed his number. He answered on the third ring, his voice warm and low. "Joe, I was hoping you'd call sooner." "They went through with it," I said. "All of it." He sighed. "I'm sorry, Joe, but you know what to do now." "Yes," I said softly. "I know exactly what to do." That afternoon, I made tea and called the bank manager, pretending to be the confused old lady everyone believed I was. "Oh dear, I just need to make sure my property records are up to date," I said sweetly. "Would you please confirm the ownership details on file for the Maple Street residence?" The woman on the line checked. "It still lists you as the primary owner, Mrs. Harper, but there's a secondary clause mentioning the transfer pending, let me see, contingent upon terms of the care agreement." "Thank you, dear," I said, my heart steady. Contingent. Perfect word. Then I called the courthouse to schedule a private notarization meeting for the following week. Harold would be there, and so would my justice. By evening, Nicole returned in a storm of perfume and fake laughter. "You didn't mess with the kitchen, did you? I've got a live cooking segment tonight." She opened the fridge and frowned. "Where's my almond milk?" I smiled faintly. I drank it. Her eyes narrowed. "That was for my show." "Well," I said softly, "I needed it more." Her face twisted, not from the milk, but from the tone. It wasn't fear yet, but it was the beginning of doubt. That old woman they'd bullied might not be as broken as she looked. Mark came home late, half drunk, tossing his jacket on the sofa. "Nicole says you're being difficult again, Mom," he muttered. I looked up from my knitting, though my hands were shaking too badly to make a single stitch. "No, dear," I said. "I'm just remembering who I am." He frowned. "We're doing this for your own good, you know. You can't live alone anymore. You should be grateful we took you in." Grateful. That word stabbed me harder than any blade. I let out a small laugh, the kind that sounds harmless but isn't. "You're right, Mark." "I am grateful." I set down my needles. "And soon, I'll make sure you get exactly what you deserve for taking such good care of me." He didn't understand. Of course he didn't. He just shrugged and went upstairs, muttering something about how old people lose their filters. Later that night, Nicole uploaded another video titled "Caring for the Elderly: Our Journey with Grandma Jo." I could hear her narrating over clips she'd filmed of me doing chores, my shaved head wrapped in a floral scarf. Her voice was full of fake compassion, each sentence dripping with lies. "This sweet woman depends on us completely," she said. "It's a blessing to care for her in her final years." I turned off the sound before I could hear more. The next morning, I wrote 3 letters, one to Harold, one to the local sheriff, and one to a real estate agent I trusted from long ago. I sealed them carefully and hid them beneath the loose floorboard by my bed. Outside, the maple trees were shedding their leaves, carpeting the yard in gold and crimson. The world was changing, shedding its old skin. So was I. That evening, as I stood by the window, I caught my reflection. Bald, fragile, older than I remembered. But there was something fierce in my eyes. Something alive again. They thought they'd reduced me to nothing, but what they didn't understand was that I had already started taking everything back. And soon, when the papers were signed, when the right eyes saw the right clause, my house, my life, would be mine again. But first, I had to let them believe they'd won. So when Nicole called me down for dinner, I smiled. "Coming, dear," I said sweetly, smoothing my scarf. It wasn't surrender, it was camouflage. The next week, I moved like a ghost through my own house. They thought I was quiet because I was broken. They mistook stillness for weakness. But every silence of mine had a purpose now, every smile a thread of wire in the snare I was weaving around them. I started small, the way old women do when we want to be underestimated. I brewed tea for everyone every morning, Earl Grey, strong and sweet. Mark would take his mug to the porch, scrolling through his phone. Nicole sipped hers in front of her ring light, practicing her fake kindness for her followers. I would sit at the table with my notebook, pretending to make grocery lists, while my small digital recorder, hidden in the sugar bowl, captured every word. Their voices were always dripping with venom when they thought I wasn't listening. "I told you to keep her off camera when she looks too creepy," Nicole hissed one afternoon, her voice sharp as a knife. "It kills engagement. People don't want to see an old bald crone." "Relax," Mark muttered. "She'll be gone soon anyway. You heard the lawyer. Once the property's officially ours, we can move her into a care home. We'll say she needs supervision." "Good," Nicole replied, the sound of her spoon clinking against porcelain. "I can't stand her watching me all the time. Gives me chills." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The recorder caught everything. Every syllable was a seed of their own downfall. At night, when the house was dark, I would creep to the laundry room, the only space they didn't bother to clean or film, and plug my phone into the charger. Harold had taught me how to send encrypted emails, something my son never imagined I could do. "Upload everything," he'd told me. "Record them, document the abuse. When the time comes, we'll file the clause and make the court listen." It became my ritual. Each night I'd write my Dear Harold message. Day 3. Nicole screamed at me for using her towel. Mark laughed. She called me disgusting. Day 6. They filmed me eating dinner and made me chew slower so it would look pitiful on video. Day 8. They told the kids I used to be in a mental hospital. They laughed when I cried. Every line hurt, but I kept writing. Pain, when written, becomes evidence. One morning, I woke up to the sound of my great-granddaughter giggling. "Grandma Joe's shiny head!" she squealed from the hallway. Nicole laughed behind her phone, recording again. "Say hi to everyone, Grandma." "They love your new look." I looked at the camera and smiled, that cold, thin smile I'd perfected. "Good morning, dear. I hope they enjoy the show." She blinked. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Carry on." That afternoon, when she left to run errands, I went into her studio, the spare bedroom she'd filled with lights, makeup, and boxes of free products from her followers. On the vanity lay a pink folder labeled Brand Partnerships. Inside were printed contracts, sponsorships, ad deals, affiliate payments, all listing the Harper Home Foundation as the business entity, my house's name, my name. She had turned my address into her brand. Every video, every check, every dollar, all tied to the property she didn't yet own. The irony almost made me laugh. I took pictures of every page and sent them to Harold. By the end of the week, he emailed back, "Perfect, Joe. You've given us all we need, but keep going. Let them push further. The clause activates stronger when there's no doubt of cruelty. I'm filing preliminary notices. Be patient." Patience was something I had plenty of. I'd been patient all my life. With a husband who drank, with students who mocked my old-fashioned ways, with a son who forgot birthdays. Patience was my armor, and now it would be my weapon. On Sunday, Nicole announced a family dinner night. She invited her friends, the neighbors, even a few people from her online fan group. "It'll be great for content," she said, patting my shoulder like a child's doll. "You can sit at the head of the table, Grandma, and say something emotional. People love heartfelt moments." The humiliation didn't surprise me anymore. But what she didn't know was that I'd already hidden a second recorder under the centerpiece, right beneath the roses she'd bought for the occasion. Dinner began with laughter, lights, cameras. Nicole toasted to our lovely home and the audience watching online. Then she turned to me with her glass raised. "Grandma, would you like to say a few words about how lucky you are to have us?" My fingers tightened around my fork. Around me, the guests smiled, expecting something sweet and sentimental. I forced a shaky laugh. "Oh yes," I said softly. "I'm the luckiest woman alive." Nicole beamed. "See? She adores us." "But luck," I continued, my voice calm but trembling, "is a funny thing. It changes when people least expect it." The room went quiet for a second before Nicole barked a laugh. "Oh, she's got jokes," I smiled. "I do, dear, but the punchline always comes at the end." They laughed again, thinking I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, but in the most deliberate way possible. After dinner, when everyone was gone, I cleaned the dishes alone as usual. The leftover roast chicken cooled on the counter. My scalp still felt the ghost of the clippers, but my mind was sharp. I washed, dried, and put away each plate with the precision of a soldier preparing for battle. In the corner of the kitchen sat Nicole's camera, still recording, forgotten. I walked up to it, looked straight into the lens, and whispered, "Keep filming, sweetheart. The world deserves to see what happens next." Then I turned it off, removed the memory card, and tucked it into my apron pocket. The next morning, Mark announced that a realtor would be coming by to evaluate the property for tax reasons. I simply nodded. Inside, I could feel my pulse steady, like the slow ticking of a clock counting down to judgment. They didn't realize the realtor wasn't theirs. He was mine. And the house they thought they owned was about to slip right through their greedy fingers. The morning the realtor arrived, the air smelled of rain and reckoning. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee when I saw Mark's SUV pull into the driveway, followed by a sleek black car. Nicole came down the stairs, all perfume and pretense, fixing her hair in the mirror. "Remember, Grandma," she said without looking at me, "don't say anything weird. We're just getting the property appraised. It's standard procedure." I smiled faintly, stirring my cup. "Of course, dear. I wouldn't want to ruin your little show." She gave me a tight-lipped grin, mistaking my calm for confusion. When the doorbell rang, she rushed to answer it, her voice sugar-sweet. "Welcome. Please come in. We're so excited about this new chapter." The man who stepped in looked around 50, with kind eyes and a briefcase in his hand. His name was Mr. Graham, though Nicole didn't know that he'd already met me 2 weeks ago in Harold's office. He shook Mark's hand, then turned to me. "And you must be Mrs. Harper. Lovely to see you again." Nicole blinked. "Again?" I smiled. "Oh yes, we've spoken before. He's helping me with some paperwork." I watched the color drain slightly from her face. Mark's brow furrowed. "Paperwork? What paperwork?" "Nothing urgent," I said, sipping my coffee. "Just inheritance details." Nicole laughed awkwardly. "Oh, Grandma, you're always mixing things up." She led Mr. Graham toward the living room. "Let's show you the property." As they toured the house, I trailed behind, silent, my steps soft as dust. Every wall they bragged about, every renovation they pointed out, every corner they claimed as theirs, all of it was still mine. Every inch of this place carried my name on the deed, thanks to the clause they never bothered to read. When we reached the kitchen, Mr. Graham asked, "And how long have you two been the legal occupants?" "About 3 months," Nicole answered quickly. "We're the official caregivers under contract." He nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting. And has the caregiving been satisfactory, Mrs. Harper?" I met his eyes. "Satisfactory?" I repeated. "Well, that depends. Does shaving an old woman's head count as caregiving these days?" The silence that followed was almost holy. Nicole's smile cracked. Mark's jaw tightened. "Grandma, what are you talking about?" Mark snapped. I tilted my head. "I'm talking about your little video, dear. The one where you humiliated me for likes. The one I copied before you deleted it." Nicole stammered. That was just for fun?" I finished for her. "Of course. Fun is such a flexible word, isn't it?" Mr. Graham's pen scratched across his notepad. "I'll be noting that," he murmured. Nicole turned pale. "What are you writing?" "Documentation," he said simply. "The agreement includes behavioral stipulations. Any evidence of abuse or humiliation nullifies the arrangement. Mrs. Harper retains full ownership." Mark's face darkened. "Wait, what?" "That's not possible. The house is ours." I finally stood up straighter, my spine unbending for the first time in months. "No, Mark, it was never yours. You just borrowed the roof I built and filled it with your cruelty." Nicole's voice shook. "You can't do this. We took care of you." I smiled coldly. "Did you?" I turned to Mr. Graham. "Would you like to hear them say how they planned to throw me into a home, or how they mocked me on camera?" From my pocket, I pulled the small USB drive, the one Harold had prepared for this exact moment. I placed it gently on the table. "Everything you need is here," I said. Mr. Graham looked at me with quiet respect. "That will be sufficient." He turned to Mark and Nicole. "This meeting is over. I'll file the revocation immediately. You'll have 30 days to vacate." Nicole's mouth fell open. "Vacate? Well, you can't kick us out of our own house." "It's not your house," I said softly. "It's mine, and you forfeited every right to it the moment you decided my suffering was entertainment." Mark took a step toward me, his eyes blazing. "You planned this," he hissed. "You tricked us." I met his fury with calm. "No, son, you tricked yourselves." He turned away, muttering curses, while Nicole began to cry. Not out of remorse, but fear. The kind of fear that only comes when power slips through greedy hands. After Mr. Graham left, I sat in the quiet. The rain had started outside, tapping against the windows like applause from heaven. Nicole stormed upstairs, slamming doors, her sobs echoing through the walls. Mark didn't speak to me at all. That night, I made myself a cup of tea and stood by the window. My reflection looked different. Bald, yes, but radiant in a way I hadn't seen in years. There was strength in the lines of my face, a calm defiance in my eyes. When Mark came down later, his voice was small. "Mom, where are we supposed to go?" I didn't look at him. "You're young, strong, and clever, aren't you? You'll figure it out." "Please," he said, almost whispering. "We just wanted—" "What wasn't yours?" I interrupted. "And now you'll learn what that costs." He said nothing more. I went to bed with the rain still falling, feeling the weight of my freedom settle gently on my chest. But I wasn't finished. Revenge is never complete with paperwork alone. I still had one last performance planned, and the audience was larger than they could ever imagine. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and hit the like button. Your support helps us bring you even more incredible stories. It's strange, the things that make a house feel alive again. For me, it was the silence after they left. That first night alone. No laughter from upstairs, no barking orders, no fake sweet voice calling, "Grandma," smile for the vlog. Just the soft creak of the old wood floors and the sound of rain slipping through the gutters. Freedom doesn't roar, it whispers. But peace, I've learned, is only satisfying when justice has been served. And my justice wasn't finished yet. 3 days after Mr. Graham filed the documents, Nicole came storming back with her phone in hand. She was live streaming again, mascara running, her voice trembling for the audience. "She kicked us out. My husband and I cared for her for months, and now she's thrown us onto the street." Her followers flooded the chat with pity. Poor Nicole. That selfish old woman. How could she? I watched the video from my kitchen table, a cup of chamomile tea warming my hands. My scalp had started to grow the faintest layer of gray fuzz. I ran my fingers over it and smiled. They wanted a show. I would give them one. That evening, I called Harold. "It's time," I said. He chuckled softly. "I thought you'd say that. Are you sure you want it public?" "Yes," I answered. "Let the world see the kind of children I raised." He arranged everything. A meeting with a local journalist who ran a human interest segment for the regional paper. Her name was Layla, bright-eyed, curious, the kind who'd spent her career exposing frauds and fake charities. When she arrived, she carried a small camera and a notebook. "I've read the legal filings, Mrs. Harper," she said gently, "but I'd like to hear your side." So I told her. I told her everything. The fake care agreement, the humiliations, the live stream where they shaved my head. I showed her the footage, the documents, the clause Harold had drafted. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the files. "This is abuse," she whispered. "Elder exploitation, and you have it all on record." "Yes," I said, "but I don't just want punishment. I want the truth to live where their lies once did." 2 weeks later, the article was published. "Elderly woman outsmarts family in cruel property scam." The first photo was of me sitting on the porch, sunlight catching the silver stubble on my head. I looked straight into the camera, unflinching. The second photo, the one that went viral, showed Nicole mid-laugh, holding the clippers in her hand. The article spread like wildfire. People recognized them. The same neighbors who had once believed Nicole's sugary stories now crossed the street to avoid her. Her sponsors pulled out one by one. The Harper Home Foundation accounts were shut down. Mark lost his job a week later after the HR department saw the footage and called it a moral breach. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just sat on my porch in the early mornings, watching the mailman deliver envelopes. Letters from strangers who wrote things like, "You gave me courage to stand up for myself. My kids treat me the same way. I won't stay quiet anymore." The world had turned its eyes toward me, the invisible old woman, and for once, it saw me clearly. Still, I knew it wasn't over. Nicole wasn't the kind to vanish quietly. She came back one evening just before dusk. No cameras, no makeup, no audience, just her and a box of my old dishes she'd found in their storage unit. She placed it on the porch without meeting my eyes. "I came to return these," she muttered. "Kind of you," I said, sipping my tea. "Planning to apologize while you're at it?" She flinched. "You ruined our lives." I tilted my head. "No, dear, you recorded your own ruin. I just pressed play." For the first time, she looked smaller. Not glamorous, not cruel, just empty. "We were trying to build something," she whispered. "The videos, the business. It was supposed to make us famous." "And it did," I said softly. "Just not the way you hoped." She looked at me, her eyes wet, then turned and walked away down the path, her heels clicking like guilty echoes. I didn't call after her. That night, as the sky turned deep violet, I sat on the porch and listened to the cicadas. I thought of my husband, of the quiet dignity he carried even through hardship. I thought of the students I'd once taught, the ones who learned that kindness wasn't weakness. And I thought of my house, this little yellow fortress that had seen both cruelty and courage. Inside, the kitchen light flickered gently. On the counter lay an unopened envelope from Harold. I opened it and found a note. "It's done. The deed is yours alone again. And I've included a second document, your will. I added your new clause, just as you asked." I smiled as I read the words I dictated to him last week. If any future heir attempts to coerce, deceive, or exploit the benefactor, the entire estate shall be donated to the Women's Shelter of Mesa County. I placed the will in the drawer beside the sugar bowl where my recorder once hid. Then I whispered, "Fairness. Finally." The following weekend, the local news interviewed me outside the courthouse. Cameras lined the steps. One reporter asked, "Mrs. Harper, what message would you give to others in your position?" I looked straight into the lens, my voice calm and steady. "Don't let them tell you age makes you powerless," I said. "It just makes you quiet enough to listen and patient enough to strike when it counts." The crowd applauded. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt invincible. That night, I turned off the porch light, made myself a cup of tea, and sat in the same chair where they once shaved my head. The moonlight touched the faint new hair on my scalp like a promise of renewal. I wasn't just a survivor, I was the author of my own ending. And if they ever tried to rewrite it again, well, the clause would take care of that. Morning light spills through the curtains like forgiveness. For the first time in years, I wake up without fear. No footsteps above my head, no camera clicking in my face, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the smell of bread toasting. My house breathing again, my rhythm restored. I sit at the kitchen table with my tea, watching the steam curl like smoke from an old fire that's finally burned out. But ashes always leave something behind, and I'm not done cleaning. After the article, after the cameras, after Nicole's pitiful visit, I thought everything was over. But life loves one last twist, doesn't it? It arrived 3 weeks later in the form of a letter from a law firm I didn't recognize. Heavy paper, embossed seal. I sliced it open with the edge of my butter knife. Notice of counterclaim. Mark and Nicole Harper versus Josephine Harper. Allegation, defamation, breach of contract, and emotional distress. I laughed so hard I spilled tea on the counter. Imagine that, an emotional distress. As if I hadn't lived it. I called Harold. He didn't sound surprised. "I've seen it before," he said. "They're desperate. We'll handle it." But something in me shifted then. I didn't want to just handle it. I wanted to teach them something. I'd spent 74 years teaching. Children, neighbors, and now, apparently, ungrateful adults who'd never learned the difference between shame and consequence. So when the court date arrived, I put on my best navy dress and my mother's pearls. My hair had grown into a soft silver halo. Not long, but long enough to remind me that everything comes back when you stop cutting it down. They were already there when I walked in. Mark in a cheap suit, Nicole in sunglasses too big for her face, pretending the flashes from the press didn't bother her. When our eyes met, she looked away. The judge called us forward. "Mrs. Harper, you've been accused of defamation. How do you plead?" I stood, calm as stone. "Not guilty, Your Honor. Everything I said was true, and I have proof." Harold handed the judge a folder. Inside were the recordings, photos, contracts, even the videos Nicole herself had uploaded. I watched the color drain from their faces as their own words filled the courtroom. Laughter over cruelty, greed disguised as care. Nicole tried to interrupt. "That was taken out of context." The judge raised a hand. "Silence, Mrs. Harper. I think the context is perfectly clear." It took only 20 minutes for the case to collapse. Their lawyer whispered something to them, and Mark's head fell into his hands. The judge dismissed the suit and fined them for filing a false claim. When it was over, I walked past them toward the courthouse doors. Mark lifted his head. "Mom?" His voice was small again, just like that night he begged me not to make them leave. "We made mistakes. We were under pressure. I lost my job, Nicole." "Stop." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. There's no explanation that erases what you did. You didn't lose everything because of me, Mark. You lost it because you forgot who you were raised to be. Nicole looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "You've destroyed us." "No," I said softly. "I just showed the world who you already were." Outside, reporters swarmed me again. They shouted questions. "How does it feel to win?" "Do you forgive them?" I stopped on the courthouse steps, looking out at the flashes of cameras, the faces of strangers who had followed every twist of my story. "Forgiveness isn't for them," I said. "It's for me. I forgave them the moment I stopped caring what they took. You can't steal from someone who's already let go." The next weeks passed quietly. The house settled back into its gentle rhythm. My garden bloomed brighter than it had in years. Lilacs, roses, even the stubborn lavender that refused to grow while they lived here. I spent my days reading on the porch, sometimes receiving letters from people who called me brave, sometimes from widows who called me sister. Then one afternoon, as I watered the garden, a small voice called from the gate, "Grandma Jo?" It was my great-granddaughter, the one who used to giggle when they mocked me. She was clutching a wilted daisy. Her hair was longer now, her eyes softer. "My mommy said I can't come," she whispered, "but I wanted to say sorry." My throat tightened. I knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "For what, sweetheart?" "For laughing," she said. "I didn't know it hurt you." I smiled, tears burning behind my eyes. "You're here now. That's what matters." She handed me the daisy. "Can I visit you sometimes?" "Of course," I said. "Just you." As she ran back to the car, Nicole waited behind the wheel, staring at me from a distance. For the first time, she didn't glare. She just looked, tired, lost, smaller somehow. I gave her a small nod. She didn't return it, but she didn't look away either. Then the car disappeared down the street. That night, I placed the wilted daisy in a glass of water on the kitchen table. It stood there, drooping but beautiful in its own imperfect way, like me. When the evening sun slipped through the window, I opened my journal, the same one I'd started the night of the shaving, the night I decided to stop being afraid. On the last page, I wrote, "They took my hair, my pride, and nearly my peace. But they gave me something better. Clarity. Age doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous to those who mistake your silence for surrender." Then I closed the notebook, set it beside my cup of tea, and whispered to the empty room, "Lesson over." The house, my house, answered back with the soft creak of the floorboards, as if it too understood that the test was finished. And for the first time since that cruel day in the kitchen, I laughed, not bitterly, but freely, because in the end I had won the only thing that ever mattered, myself. The end. If you like the story, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and write in the comments if something like this has ever happened in your life. I'd love to hear your stories. Thank you for watching.